hear you.
Emanation and a million faces formed together, made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender faith. This I can fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath. When you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping and the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath. When they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. I know it's a surprise now, but I will not be here tonight, and this is going to be a pre-recorded show, which we're going to do now. If you don't know who the gentleman is on the other side of this table, that is Mr. Lou Arata. He is the former Republican candidate for state representative for the 83rd. He's also the vice chair of the Republican Town Committee here in the city of Meriden, and he will be with us for part of the show today. As you can see, we are not in our normal studios. We have gone remote. We will be in this location for the next month as we get closer and closer to Election Day. We are going to be doing some great things coming out. We do have some things that we will try to promote, and I think we have some interesting concepts we want to try out over the next couple of weeks also. So we're going to be doing a lot of new stuff. But I figured I had Lou here. He was here helping me set up the green screen that you see behind, and we're trying to do some other things. We do have a couple of people sitting here behind us, and people will come in and out as the show progresses. If we might even drag a couple of them on set here with us. But without further ado, here he is, Mr. Lou Arata. Thank you for joining us, sir.
To sit here, that's much better.
Just turn your mic towards you.
Towards me.
Yep. There you go. There we go. Just like that. So these work best when you're going directly at them. So we got a lot going on in the city. Lou is also, which is the reason why I wanted to bring him on. He is on the PUC,
Public Utilities Commission.
So if anyone knows who they are in the city, they are the ones that deal with your water and your sewer.
That is correct.
And every once in a while, we all get hyped up on how much we don't like you.
That's right. That's right. Nobody likes to pay bills.
No, nobody likes to pay more than what they have to. And I think the thing that for the people that are informed on what's going on is people don't like to pay unfunded liabilities that are being forced upon us from the state and the federal government.
I would totally agree with that, and it's the unfunded mandates that drive up property taxes and user fees. For example, your water and your sewer bills.
Right. Now, over the last couple of years, we've been talking a lot about water and sewer, and what is the project that is costing the taxpayers so much money right now?
Right now, we're finishing up the phosphorus plant, and it's a filtration plant that was given. The directive was given from the state, but the state was given the directive from the federal government that the spillover from excess of water that goes into the sewer treatment facility will spill out into the Quinnipiac River. And the idea was to keep the Quinnipiac as pristine as possible. So whenever we have, like the last couple of hurricane storms that came through, there were millions of gallons of water that had nowhere to go. We couldn't handle the inflow. The phosphorus plant, we're trying to take phosphorus out of that treatment water, and so now our levels are below what the state mandates are for the standards for phosphorus. And the Meriden treatment facility is one of the most advanced in the state, and it's state-of-the-art equipment. And what you see as you go by the facility, underneath the facility is a plethora of pipes and valves and tunnels and things that make the toilet work and your faucets work when you want water. Everybody kind of forgets about exactly how much infrastructure is involved to make those what we consider simple necessity things happen. And we take it for granted.
Well, I think definitely most people take it for granted. I mean, I'd be one of them. I know the video is gone. We're actually setting that back up again. It'll be up in a second. But yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that take it for granted because, you know, I expect when I flush the toilet or I do anything, that it's going to do what it needs to do.
Correct.
So, so on top of that, now, like I said, you are vice chair of the Republican Town Committee.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that and what the great things you guys are looking to do with this campaign?
Well, the town committee has actually been very focused on fundraising for the past year and a half. I would say that we're a little bit more organized than we have been, and I credit Sean McDonald and I credit all the people that are on the town committee, particularly Elaine Cariotti, myself. You know, a lot of people have stepped up and hosted fundraisers, and I think that was one of the main things to do. The second thing is that as far as running candidates, we're trying not to recreate the wheel, and we're running a slate of candidates because nothing can happen in the city of Meriden unless we change the demographic of who's actually controlling the city council. And for 38 years, 40 years, it's been a Democrat-controlled city, and they've been able to do whatever they wanted. And without checks and balances, there is a tremendous opportunity for mismanagement. And it is our position that this city has been mismanaged. We had Guy Scaffey and this whole fiasco with city managers go on, and rocks were overturned, and things were found out, and then things were hidden from the public. And we're looking for transparency, and I think that Sean McDonald is highly focused on increasing a conservative presence and in a transparent way so that the people of Meriden get to know exactly what's going on downtown and they have a bigger voice.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think where the Republican Party was a year ago from where it is today, I think is night and day. Yeah. I think as far as the fundraising has been absolutely amazing, and I know that's been headed by Elaine Cariotti, who happens to be running for mayor this year. She was on a couple weeks ago. We'll probably have her on again in another couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, I think the new leadership has really done a tremendous job. I know, you were part of the old leadership also. I know I'm on the executive board. I see a night and day difference. I see things going in the right direction. I see our numbers increasing, and I see again. I think the people in the city of Meriden are ready for a change. I think they too want transparency because, listen, they're not going to police themselves up there. They're not going to turn themselves in for wrongdoings that were found under SCAFE.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how long those Freedom of Information requests come for the documents of what SCAFE actually found,
Right.
and the depositions of some of the counselors that had to take them. So I want to know what they say and what was really going on up at City Hall while SCAFE was here.
Well, we want to see that too. It's a document that is going to open up a lot of eyes for people, and people continually vote for the same people, the same party over and over again, and it's either they are participating and getting something back for that, either they have contracts with the city or people in their family work for the city and they don't want to see the apple cart overturned, and so they want to keep the status quo. But for the majority of people in the city that continually see their property taxes increase, our mill rate is huge. What is it, 40.2?
40 point, yeah, about 40.2, 40.5, somewhere in there.
So we're pretty high, and we've got 60,000 people in town, and there's just never any discussion at all about cost savings, saving money, spending less, decreasing budgets. It's always increase, increase, increase. And we can't even have a discussion with the present control of the Democrats in the city council about even looking at cost savings. And I think that that's something that the people of Meriden are just tired of not being able to have that discussion with their leaders.
I mean, I would think with what Brian Daniels put, the former majority leader, put in the paper last week, where he listed all the accomplishments of Democrats, which are all 100% grants. It's
Right.
like, all right, with all these 100% grants, I asked this question last week, where the hell did all of our real money go?
Right.
Where did all of our tax dollars go to?
It's the funny money, and Meriden's really good about getting grants, and I'm not a opponent of getting grants to fund and help pay for infrastructure. For example, our PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, we get millions of dollars, and that helps keep taxpayers from having to spend more for their water rates and their sewer rates, and that's a good thing. However, everybody's got somebody somewhere has to pay something, and I believe that the idea that if we don't take this grant money, somebody else will take it. But it's the fact that if the state is creating grant money, where is that money coming from? And then if they're getting it from the federal government, well, we just saw that there was an increase in the tax level that, where does it stop? And we're all playing the shell game with this money, and we need to get back to a more conservative pay-as-you-go system and become realistic.
Yeah, I think when you talk about grant money, again, and I've said this for years, the city of Meriden and the Democrats on the council are addicted to grant money. They'll do anything for it.
Yes.
And I think what they're doing is they're taking the wrong grant money, because the grant money they're getting is normally to build low-income housing. And we're already 18% of the city is low-income housing.
Correct.
We don't need any more.
Correct.
I think most of the average towns around us are like 6%.
If that. And not to beat up the towns around us, but there is a mandate in the state that all the 169 towns would be around 10%. That was the target. And there are 5 communities, 5 cities in the state that are over that, and Meriden happens to be one of those towns. So I think that what happens is that when you have an influx of low-income housing, unfortunately, your services have to increase. And when that happens, then the taxes have to increase, and your reliance on other people's money to help you pay for that increases. And so we need to spread that out across the state, and that not only helps everyone in the state to do the right thing, to do the fair thing, and to help your fellow man. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what politicians used to be predicated on. Now, in Meriden, it's get the grant money in, and then our friends and our buddies get to build the stuff, and then we can just keep this fun game going, and it's unrealistic.
And they're bringing in their own voters.
Correct.
And again, most people sit there and love to take shots at me when I say stuff like this, but stats don't lie, and like I said, facts don't care about your feelings.
Mhm.
When you bring in low-income housing, they're usually Democrat voters. That's just a fact. So, and again, they bring in crime. Again, another fact brought up by the deputy chief at the time, where everybody criticized him and tried crucifying him because he had the guts to say it, which I don't know why it's a surprise. He's a police deputy chief. He's going to let you know what happens when you're going to build this, and what has happened in the downtown area, over in that area, crime has gone up. So I don't know why people are surprised when these things happen. They're warned about it, but for some reason the city of Meriden continues to want to do it. And there's a survey going around right now, which I got through my son's school on the Parent Square, taking a survey. Do we have enough affordable housing in the city of Meriden? That's one of the questions that's on there. Yeah. It's like, come on, really? We're at 18%. What do you think? You have a downtown that you revitalized based on bringing low-income housing, and there's nothing that's been going on down there for 4 years. Do they really need to ask that question?
Well, I think that, again, the powers that be are wanting to sustain the programs that they have. And when you bring in low-income housing, I think it's important that, for most families, anywhere, not just low-income housing, but anywhere in the country, and I would even say globally, that your family wants to stay intact. And if we have an influx of people coming into town from Puerto Rico after the hurricanes came in and the devastation that Puerto Rico had, there were a lot of family members that were still living in Puerto Rico that had family here in Meriden, and so where are they going to go? Well, of course, it's natural that you would want to go and stay with your family for support emotionally and financially, but that's just an example of families wanting to stay together, and families, what do the families do? Families grow. Right. So as we have 18%, we're going to go to 18.5, we're going to go to 19, we're going to go to 19.2, we're going to go to 19.7, we're going to go to, it's just going to continue to grow unless the system is checked. And the system under the present Democratic-controlled city council isn't going to change, and the state, just to take it one step further, state control at the legislature level has been a grant sponge for anything that they can get from the federal government. And sometimes it's not wise, or I don't believe it's wise, to take a grant because we're going to have something paid for 50% by grant money, whereas we have to then come up with 50%. And if we didn't have that grant, we wouldn't even be having the discussion of doing that particular project because we simply didn't have enough money set aside. And, our bonding cap is pretty much maxed out. Look at the library. The library now wants to get an additional $1.9 million over and above the 7.4 million that was already approved. It's just wanting more and more and more. And you use the word addiction, and I think that's 100% accurate with the present council, is that they are addicted to these projects. They're addicted to this funny money, this free money that comes from elsewhere. We don't know where it comes from, and it seems that they don't care where it comes from as long as it comes here, and they get to spend it.
Right. And then they get to tout it, and again, it all turns into politics.
Correct.
So turning to politics, as again, you are the vice chair of the Republican Town Committee, the slate you have putting out here, I think, is an amazing slate.
It's a great slate.
I'll let you go through them and give your opinion on them.
Well, we've got a couple of district races. We have 2 at-large people. We have Elaine Cariotti leading the ticket for mayor. We have 3 Board of Education people that are up. The Board of Education, as you know, in the last municipal elections, we won all 5, and due to minority representation, we lost 1 seat there. But I think the Board of Education pretty much has been operating on an even keel. Their budget was, for almost a decade, flat, which I commend them for operating within. It's a pretty hefty budget, don't get me wrong, but they were operating without the increases that the other side of the merit budget was looking for. So with our area candidates, we have Dan Zabrowski, who's running for at-large, and we also have Ray Willette, who is a police officer, actually, on the force right now. A tremendous individual, giving us quite a bit of insight, personal insight, as to what's going on with the defund the police and equity and all of the issues with the BLM and how that's affecting the morale. It's affecting the staff levels. It's affecting the safety for the citizens of Meriden. Our police force and our first responders, our fire department. I mean, that's the primary reason for paying taxes is to keep safe.
Yeah, just to touch on that, I mean, this whole defund the police, again, and I don't even find it to defund the police anymore. Our city council, the Democrats on the city council, have put out a full-out assault on our police department over the last year. I think that's being headed by, again, I call them the justice warriors, or racial justice warriors over there with Jelks, and then you have Cortez and Tomasetti and Blake, who have really been pushing this racial agenda, which I still have no idea why they are doing such a thing, and making the city out to look like we have a race problem when we don't.
I think one of the major problems with that is the inability for them to articulate exactly what is it that they want to see done that isn't already being done by a fabulous police department. We've taken steps. The city police department has taken steps to be very transparent. Can we be more transparent? Probably. I mean, and to what percentage, I can't qualify that. But I think that as far as looking at other communities, we're so far ahead of the game for equality and doing the right thing, and supervisory boards internally, let the internal procedures take place. And again, it's, I think, grandstanding from the politicians to jump on this race bandwagon, and it's ununifying as opposed to unifying. They're creating problems where problems don't exist, and I think they're doing it for publicity reasons and for their own reasons. And until they can articulate exactly what is wrong and where is it wrong, then I'm kind of fed up with it as well.
I think every time they try to articulate it, it backfires on them. So they just try to use as many broad things as they possibly can.
Broad strokes.
Because every single stat that they have seen, they have asked for, even the surveys that they've asked for, have come back highly in favor of the police department. But for some reason, they continue to go after them. And it just doesn't make any, you know what it is? You know what boggles my mind the most is that it doesn't make any sense politically to do such a thing. Once you have two surveys that came out and all of them said, our police are phenomenal. It just blows my mind. It's like what more do you need?
Yeah.
But they're still hell bent on it. And even though it has been the CRB, which is what they want, the Citizens Review Board, has been tabled indefinitely, apparently. That will be interesting to see what happens after this election.
That is very interesting.
So I've heard different stories on why it's been put on the back burner. Some I'm not going to say, but I think won the election. I think won the second survey that came out from the third-party nonprofits. I think a lot of Democrats got in their ear and said, enough of this. We're going to get killed in November. So I think they're trying to cut their losses. I'm not going to let them forget about it. I'm not going to let the voters forget about what they're trying to do.
Well, that's why we're here, and that's why we're doing this public service. That's why we're talking. It's more transparency.
And I think that's important. That's why I think that, again, I commend some of the politicians that have sat in that chair. Deputy Mayor Cardona has been on. The mayor has been on. The police chief has been on. They are doing what they're supposed to do. They do need to speak to the public. I do have issues with people like Tomasetti and Cortez, who don't believe they have to go and talk to the public. And if you disagree with them, they would just call you a bully.
Mhm.
Like I said, I call it holding my politicians and the representatives accountable for what they're doing and saying.
As you should.
And they can't hide behind that microphone all the time. Like I said, I have real issues with the city council when you go up and you speak. They listen to you for 3 minutes and then they just put you to the side. I think we should have something more like Wallingford, where you can interact with your representatives during the town meetings, and you can have your questions answered.
That's a good idea.
But of course, our charter won't do that. In fact, Daniels, when he was majority leader, actually there was no public speaking. Even when Dominello, I believe, was there was no public speaking. It was only when Manny got the mayor spot, he brought back the public speaking.
Awesome.
So, excuse me. So again, I think let's talk about a couple of the really interesting races that I think may go one way or another. I'm really excited about Area 1.
Area 1 is going to be, we have Norberto Gonzalez, and what a fantastic community-minded businessman, that family man, really getting involved, getting engaged, getting his community involved. It is so refreshing to see a new voice, a new face downtown, where there are some serious issues, and he's going to be tackling these issues. He's new to politics. He's new to the campaigning and the whole game that you have to, the hoops you have to go through to run. He's learning all of that very quickly, and what a fabulous, fabulous opportunity the city has.
I tell you that from the time I've gotten to meet him and then his I believe his cousin, Elmer,
Yes.
those two are phenomenal.
They are.
And for an area that is so low in voter participation, I think that changes this year. I think those two are gung-ho on getting into the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And again, everyone has always criticized Republicans for not being diverse. I think it's nonsense. I think we are a very diverse group. You might not see them out in the public all the time, or they might not be very public, but they're there. And I think these two going into, again, the Hispanic community, where has been relatively very low turnout, I think they're energizing that group. And I think this November, I think it's going to be a very surprising when they come out in droves voting Republican. Because, again, one, I don't believe they're for this anti-police stuff. They're very, very family-oriented, and nobody wants to see their family getting hurt.
Right.
And I think that's, with the shootings going on in their neighborhoods, I don't think they're for that. And to sit there and say, take police off the streets or make it harder for them to do their jobs, I think doesn't play well with that group.
Right.
But I am very excited to see what happens in Area 1. Area 2, you have Joe Carabetta III coming back out of retirement.
That's right.
So, and he decided to step away. He started another business. So, and that's been going great for him. He has the J&J Tree, which if you need tree work, they're the people to call. But he's fed up with the anti-police stuff. When he was a city councilor, he was all for helping our police department do their job and help cleaning up the streets. And he sees what's going on. He's like, Joe, he's like, I'm in. He's like, this anti-police stuff has to stop. Yeah. He's like, I'm coming back. And I was never happier than when I got his signature on that paper and he decided he was embarking into politics. So I think that's going to be a great race against, he's going up against Lou Graham, who 8 months ago said he wasn't even running for office again. So, but Democrats got to him because they knew one thing was for certain. They were losing that seat since Joe Carabetta was coming back. Remember, Joe Carabetta is the one that knocked out Dominello, who was there for like almost 40 years, yeah. And he beat him by 11 votes. So if he could beat Dominello, he's going to kill Lou Graham. So I think that was their best bet, is to try to beg Lou Graham to stay, even though he doesn't. I don't even believe he'll be in the state come January, February. I think he's going back to New Jersey. But that's my opinion on that.
Well, they didn't want to leave an empty slot on the ballot either.
Oh, they would have found someone. I know Tom Walsh, I think, from Medco was going to run in that spot. But like I said, why did you throw Joey up there?
Welcome back, Joey.
Yeah, it's like, come on. It's like, And the Care Bears, Care Bears don't like to lose.
No.
So, and if I had the privilege of running with him back in 2015, and I tell you what, every morning, 5:30, we were out there. Every single morning, he was out there, sign waving, meeting the people, phone banking at night. He did a tremendous job, and he'll do a tremendous job again this time. Area 3, I still have never even seen a picture or a comment from Dan Bernay's opponent, Vanessa Hutchinson, I think is her name.
Yeah, I think also.
I don't know.
It's the nebulous.
Yes, is it just someone to throw a name up there so you don't lose the spot? I don't know what the hell's going on there.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to find out who she is and get her on the show and get her, where her views on things are. Only thing I know is she works for the state vocational school. That's all I know. So Dan, of course, is the minority leader up at the city council. He's been there for a while. Again, I think he's very balanced.
He's a very balanced, logical, realistic businessman, and he takes the city council very, very seriously, and he takes his position seriously, and it's very, very hard for someone to be consistent when you are always opposing an opposition that can outvote you no matter what you say, no matter what your logic is, no matter what your data shows, no matter whose testimony you bring forward, you're still going to be outvoted, and the controlling party, the Democrats, are going to do whatever they want to do.
I think that's one thing Dan's been very good at, is making sure the minority voice is heard.
Yes.
Even though we know we're not really going to get anywhere with it, which, again, is why you need change in the city of America, because nothing's going to change without it.
And it seems that some people have thrown stones at Dan and said, all you do is talk about negative, and all you do is talk about how bad things are. Well, one of the reasons why Dan has to do that is because he's a conservative, and he looks at what are we spending money on, what is the value for spending that money, and what are we going to get? Is it going to be a short-term, or is it going to be a long-term benefit for the city? And he has the city's best interests at heart, and he's trying to protect the resources, the assets, the money that we have, and spend it as logically as we can. I think that, you can look at the investments that Meriden has made in the public schools, in the high schools. And they're two beautiful, beautiful new facilities. No one is arguing that. But a school, no matter how beautiful and how wonderful a playground you have and a stadium that you have and practice fields that you have, that doesn't make better students. And the better students, that comes from the heart, and that comes from the family, and it comes from support of the students, that they go and they feel that their education is important, and the kids are going to invest the time. You can't shove knowledge into somebody's brain. You can't do it. And you can't spend more and more money and expect test scores to increase when our scores are actually going in the wrong direction. And that could be a much larger issue for your Board of Ed shows.
Listen, throwing money at an issue is not going to solve it.
Never works.
It never works.
Never works.
You're just wasting money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just insanity how much money we just decide to throw at things, thinking that if we do that, it's going to fix it.
And certain politicians feel that it's important that they tell people how much money we've increased spending by 17% on bus availability for the city. Well, the bus ridership is actually decreasing. It's not increasing, but we're spending 17% more. So a politician can say, hey, look at me, look at what I did.
Yeah.
I increased the spending for you. It's important. Well, it's important if people use it and more people begin to use it, then I would say that's an improvement.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just, again, wasting money.
Yeah, well, some people in our city council love to spend money.
Yes, they do.
So
it's an easy thing to do.
it is a very easy thing to do when you don't have to worry about it.
It's hard to say no, and Dan does a great job of trying to bring balance and realism into these financial discussions.
Absolutely. Then you have Area 4, and that's you have. That's going to be a very, very interesting race this year. I don't think it's going to be as close as some people think it's going to be. I think Bob Williams definitely takes this area pretty easily. I think, again, when he is on the ballot, voting increases 10%, and that's just an absolutely amazing accomplishment for, and whether it's for or against him, it doesn't. I don't think it really matters. And the fact that you have that kind of influence to get people out to the polls, it tells you that you're doing something right. And he's running against our fire chief, which is a really strange Ken Morgan, who is the city's fire chief and acting city manager when the manager's gone, when the city manager is away. I don't know how the hell that's going to work.
It's just wrong.
It is just wrong. I mean, like I said, I could see an employee of the city, even though to me, do you ever hear of the Hatch Act?
Sure.
For the federal government? So those of you who don't know what the Hatch Act is, when I worked for the federal government, one of the rules is you cannot run for any office because it's a conflict of interest. So I was barred from running for office until I either had to quit my job or take a leave of absence, one of the two. Honestly, if you did that in the city of Meriden, half the city council would be gone. Because, I mean, who doesn't work for the city? If you look at the Democrats,
right?
Cardillo works for the city. Cardona works for the city. You know, and then you have all the nonprofits. Graham and Blake, Boys and Girls Club, who get money from the city. Right. You know, you have Cortez, another nonprofit. Jelks, another nonprofit. It's like the only one that actually has a real job is Bruce Fontanello, who is an attorney. I just don't get it. I mean, so again, I could see an employee of the city at this point. When you're a department head, no.
Well, I think even when you have an employee, you have to have rules and statutes. And when it says that, you know, conflict of interest doesn't seem to mean anything anymore unless you are a conservative. And if you're a conservative and there's a conflict of interest, then the spotlight gets turned on immediately and you are front and center in the news. It's everyday business for the present group, the Democrats that have the power, they have the control, they've had it for almost 4 decades, and power corrupts completely, and they don't seem to care. It doesn't matter to them, and I think more importantly, it really has not seemed to matter to the voters in Meriden, because the voters of Meriden have continued to vote in the same people over and over and over again until really the water is starting to spill over the cup, that things have gotten so out of hand that I think that people are opening up their eyes and saying, we have some serious issues, and it's on the political side. It's not on the Meriden Police Force side. It's on the town council side that we need to clean the house. And maybe Guy Scappy was onto something, and that's why they fired him after 2 months earlier. He had been given a wonderful review and a raise, and then he's just let go for no cause. So there are some huge issues that the city has, and I think people need to focus more on how screwed up our city council actually is.
Yeah, I think there's something Councilman Carabetta, Mike Carabetta, has really been tackling, and has really been bringing to the forefront, is all these different conflict of interest and all these ethical violations that really are going on in City Hall. But again, you know, we look at the ethics board; it's a joke.
Yeah.
And when they sent Castro through the ethics board, oh yeah, cleared him. It's like, what? And then they had Brian Daniels with the whole union thing with the PLA, cleared him. It's like, it could never be more obvious than what's going on right there.
Right.
And it's like, people lose faith in it. And I think is the problem with some in the city of Meriden, is that they are so nose deaf to everything that's been going on. They think that's normal. They think it's normal that everything's fine.
If you can bring in, I'm going to kind of go back to the whole grant thing. If you can run your business, and let's just say that the city councilors are the executive board of the city, and the city is a business. The city buys things, it sells things, it does things, it provides services. And if you can continually bring money in and keep spending it well, then most people are going to think everything is fine until you personally have to start paying for things. Then it starts to sting the wallet.
Yep.
And when people finally get stung enough that and realize that enough has been spent, that it's unsustainable. You cannot continually get funny money grants because at some point those faucets are going to get turned off. And then what do you have? You have a mountain of debt, and you have all of these uh, government programs in place that aren't going to be able to be funded. So now you're going to lose services for all of these people that you continually bring into town that need to have these services, and it's a bad spiral.
Yeah, I'll never understand half of. Well, I understand what liberals are trying to do. They're trying to make people dependent on themselves, on them, which is, I think, why they love low income housing. It's why they love all these social programs. So, and they love grants.
Mhm.
But like you said, when grants end, the taxpayers are the ones that get stuck fitting the bill. And again, because to me, and I've said this over the years, our council looks very short term. They don't look at the long term effects.
Right.
The green is a perfect example of that. Rhodey with and like I said, if anyone who attended the meetings at the time when the green was being built, it was Rhodey's bridge, as the architect said, because Rhodey demanded that the bridge be there. When even most people said it's not really needed, but that was something that Rhodey wanted. And that's why I call it Rhodey's bridge, because it cost you $8 million, which of course he's going to say, "Oh, it was grant money." Okay, but all the maintenance of it, all the stress cracks that were just a year into it, all the stress cracks, all the wires breaking, all that stuff had to be paid for. And again, it didn't get paid for by grants; it got paid for by the taxpayers of the city of Meriden,
Right.
and that will continue to be paid for by the taxpayers of the city of Meriden as we get to the 10-year, and you have to start doing painting on it. You got to start doing structural changes to it to make sure it's sound.
Sure.
So those aren't the long-term things that they look at. They look short-term. They look grant to grant to grant to grant to this product, to this product, to this product, and they don't care about anything else in the future because they figure they're not going to be there. And that's somebody else's problem. Where I think that's one thing where conservatives and Republicans like to look at the long term and say, okay, is this what we're getting the biggest bang for our buck at?
Well, it's most important, I think, for parents that, your kids, they're the ones that are going to be inheriting whatever
Yep.
condition the system is in when they get older. And those parents that become grandparents, it's those generations that are going to be stuck holding the bag for all of the mismanagement and all of the people that are benefiting. When we had the town hall, when everybody kind of jumped ship and was taking retirement and all the department heads were leaving, and again, this was in the Guy Scaffi time frame and that whole commotion going on. Interestingly, how many people left the area to get as far away from here as possible because they got their hands into what they could get, and then
They looked out.
they're off and gone. So and we're left again holding the bag, paying for it.
So to get back onto the track that
Sure,
we were
let's get-
talking about
yeah,
originally, which is the race against Bob Williams and Ken Morgan. Again, that's mostly South Meriden, West Meriden, and the west side. I think it's going to be an interesting race. Like I said, I think most people think it's going to be close. I personally don't think it's going to be close, but I also don't take anything for granted.
Right.
I think Bob Williams has done a tremendous job, and I think he will continue to do a tremendous job on behalf of the people down in South Meriden.
He's a great servant for the city.
He is. And then we have two at large.
Mhm.
And then we have Ray Arlett and Dan Zabrowski. Dan Zabrowski sat in that chair a couple days ago, and then Ray was in last week. Two of the greatest guys that you're ever going to meet.
Yep.
But I think two polar opposites in some ways as far as
They're very different.
intensity.
Yeah.
Because Dan is very, because he knows everything. He attends, like I said a couple of days, he attends every single meeting. In fact, I think he does more work than the counselors themselves do.
I've said that before as well, and I totally agree. He goes to
Every
every
meeting.
meeting. Every meeting, he's there.
Every
And
meeting.
he has something to say.
Yes. And I think sometimes he gets a little long-winded.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to reel him in. But again, that's just because he does know so much.
He's very passionate.
That it's just amazing. And then Ray Arlett, who has his finger on the pulse of Meriden.
Mhm.
Nobody knows the pulse of Meriden better than Ray Arlett. He's out there every day. For the last 25 years, he's been patrolling the streets of Meriden.
Well, you've ridden with some of the Meriden police officers.
I have.
I have ridden with some of the police officers, and it's an experience that I think many people could really benefit by, in seeing what goes on a daily basis. You have a whole new respect for the guys in blue and what they go through, and how many things are life-threatening, and then you have things like, lost cats, and you see police officers with compassion. You see police officers with humanistic qualities that they're not portrayed to have. They're portrayed to be angry robots, and they're human beings, and they're as wonderful as anybody else that's alive. But they have one thing in their professional life, is that they put their life on the line, where you and I perhaps may not have that in our lives. And I think their compensation for anyone, a veteran, anyone who's willing to make that sacrifice, is a special human being. And our police force I don't think they get enough credit. I think they get a lot of things thrown their way very unfairly. And hopefully, through this election, we're going to see that change.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is a thankless job of being a police officer. It's something that I wouldn't, honestly, I know my son's a police cadet. He's in the cadet program. Sometimes I have a reservation on whether or not I would want him to get into that kind of profession, just due to the fact that the culture of today is not like it was back in the day.
Right.
Where there's just such a lack of respect for people of authority with the police department, and it's unfounded, and two, it's I don't know if I want to put if I want my kid in that position. Now, of course, then you meet people like Ray, who are like, it makes you want to go into that profession,
Right.
because of all the great things he has to say and all the great things he does. But again, these are people that are thrown into situations that they never want to be thrown into. And they have to make decisions in a split second that you and I could never conceive of.
Correct.
And then to be bashed for it, I just don't know how they do it, and I commend them for it. I think our police department does an absolutely amazing job. The men and women there are heroes in my eyes, and they always will be. But, Ray, again, he understands what Meriden needs.
Mm-hmm.
He lives it every single day. He helps the people that he gets in touch with every single day, and I think he's going to be a great asset to the city council. He's on the Board of Ed now.
Right. And he was also a school officer. He also taught the DARE program. So he is involved with youth in the city and has been for years. And he truly does know what's going on.
Yeah, he is very, very passionate about education and being on the Board of Ed. And if you see his interactions with the kids, you can just see it. And they're going up against Chad Cardillo, who is a teacher, I believe, at Platt, and then Bruce Fontanella again, who is an attorney here in the city. To me, the biggest surprise of this election is Bruce Fontanella. Normally, I would say Bruce Fontanella has it in the bag as usually the top vote getter. He was 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. But he has really taken a 180 from where he was to where he is now. He has, from what all I can see, is he has embraced this social justice crap that they're trying to push. He is really, some of the questions he has been asking on city council or meetings, it's like, Bruce, what the hell happened here? I used to have a conversation. In fact, Bruce came to my house just 3 years ago when he was running for office. We had a very nice conversation out in front. Listen, he used to be a Republican. He was a Republican counselor back in the day. And he was a totally anti-Trump guy. And I get it. Some people Trump's just not their cup of tea. I get it for whatever reason. But from everything I know about Bruce, this is not Bruce. And I think what's going to happen is Bruce is going to lose based on the climate that it is now in the Democratic Party. Because, like I said, I think Sonia Jelks is the greatest thing to ever happen to Republicans in this city. I think she is an absolute disaster, and their PC and their social justice stuff is going to jump them right off the cliff. Which is why I got so mad at Republicans when they went along with that whole racial is a net public health crisis. That's why I got so pissed. Listen, if they're going to jump off the cliff, there's no friggin' reason for us to sit there and help them. Let them jump.
Right.
We'll sit there and watch. So, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen to them this year.
Well, I hope you're right. And, the midterm elections usually, starting from the president on down, they lose control, they lose power, and there are a lot of people that don't like the policies that a new administration is going to instill. And so does that trickle down to the state level? Perhaps. Does it trickle down to the local level? In Meriden, absolutely. And, we have a great opportunity to actually pull the reins in on a ship that's been afloat, out doing whatever it wanted to do for a long, long time. And we actually are going to, plot some courses and use some rational thinking to kind of put the city on a balanced keel.
You ever watch The Circus, the show on HBO about the election?
I have not seen it.
Okay, so I love the end of it because they were doing a reality show about really what they thought was going to be a Hillary Clinton victory for the presidency, and they wanted to follow it all the way through to the first woman being made president. And then, of course, we all know what happened on election night. Right. And I love the way that one of the anchors it was on Showtime. Thank you, Sean. How one of the reporters put it, and it's like at the end of the day, people just decided that they had enough of what was going on in Washington. They just felt like it was better to roll a effing stick of dynamite in there and blow the friggin' thing up. And I'm hoping that's what Meriden's ready to do. Because, again, after 38 years
minus the dynamite.
After 38 years of this control, and you see where the city's at, you see where the council wants to take the city, at some point you got to say, no. And again, I've been talking with a lot of Democrats, old school Democrats, that just are not for any of this. And I think we're going to see a huge shift with those JFK Democrats, the Ronald Reagan Democrats, that I think you're going to see come out in droves for Republicans this year. At least that's what I'm hearing, and that's what I'm hoping for. Of course, we don't take anything for granted. We got to try to make sure we reach every single one of them.
Right. And, we have to give, just because we have a different viewpoint doesn't mean it's the right viewpoint. And we have to give people a reason why to vote for the Republican slate. Why having this slate of people, voting them all in, why is that beneficial for the city? It is beneficial for the city, number one, just because the city needs change. And that's probably one of the most overused political slogans is time for change. Well, in Meriden and in Connecticut, we've had the same thing literally 4 decades. And look at us, we're dependent on grants and other people's money and increasing taxes. And that it's just been the same old thing. That's our standard way of doing political business.
But even to take that one step further, that's the old school Democrats.
Right.
They're subject to, they want the grant money. They want, be dependent, the dependency part. This is a new age of Democrat that has taken over the city now. With Sonia Jelks, she is ushering in, again, for the first time in my life, I've ever seen a leadership talk down about the city they live in or the city they represent, which is strange to me because they talk about all these problems in the city, but yet they've held it for 38 years. Right. So aren't you technically responsible for all these problems?
Well, they absolutely are responsible, but it's the deflection game, the political deflection game. It's the anti-Trump. It always goes back. You get into a specific discussion with someone who's left-leaning and with somebody who's right-leaning, and inevitably you're going to get into somewhere the person on the left is going to bring up something about Donald Trump and how awful he was. And the fact that
But they have no proof of that because everything he did, he has the statistics to prove on what a great job he did.
well, he did, and whether you like him personally or not, there were a lot of things that I personally did not like about Donald Trump.
Same.
But his policies and his direction that he was steering the country in, I feel either we're a sovereign nation or we're not. And you look at the southern border and this whole dialogue about spending $2 billion or $5 billion on a wall, and we're looking at spending $3.5 trillion like it's nothing, like it's absolutely nothing. And so to me, these discussions are ludicrous. They're not based on fact. They're based on emotion. And I think we have to try to get the emotion out of the politics because there's no way you can have compromise if everybody is so correct in their own thinking. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not the brightest bulb in the box. Michael Jordan said that how great his numbers were, somebody at some point was going to come and have better numbers than him. So there's always going to be a better idea. You're always going to learn from, hopefully, from other people that have different opinions so that you'll be able to be an adult and talk about it and learn from it. It doesn't mean you have to agree, but you have to have the dialogue. And today, it's very, very difficult to have the dialogue. And again, I'm going to go back to Dan Brunet bringing up the minority point in a lot of these discussions that the city council is having. He has to be the adult in the room and say no. And the power of no is it's a negative, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative. It actually can be a positive if that no leads you to not do something that's not in the best interest of the city. And that's where Dan comes from. That's where Mike comes from. That's where Bob Williams, We the People, where he has come from, is just to bring some reality back to City Hall and say that, you know what, we're going to live within our means. And all of this funny money coming in, it's funny money.
And again, when it comes down to, and of course, everything with politics ends up coming down to money and who can get their message out. And I think, again, that's where even We the People this year has raised quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Republicans, people have been throwing money at Republicans. And then I look at the Democrats, and usually they're 3 times as much as we are now. Like I said, all the roles have reversed this year.
They have.
I think they have the weakest slate I've ever seen come out of the city of Meriden Democrats.
But they have nothing to run on.
They have nothing to run on.
And that's
absolutely nothing to run on other than trying to divide everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that slate over there, and I'm like, okay, we're not running against them because none of them have said a word. Where our candidates have been out there, we're running against the D.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to find out this year how powerful that D is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it was pretty powerful 2 years ago. And you look at Tomasetti and Blake, both got elected, both without saying a word. They didn't say a word the entire election cycle.
They didn't bring anything to the
They
table
brought nothing.
prior. Nothing.
But yet they got elected.
Yep.
And again, that just shows you the power of that D. And we're going to find out this year on how powerful it is because, like I said, roles have been reversed. Republicans and We the People have a ton of money. Democrats have none. We the People and the Republicans have great candidates that have proven success records, no matter which one you look at. Whether you want to talk about Elaine Cariotti and what the leadership she shows here and the leadership in her building of her buildings, her houses here in Mississippi, Meriden. Whether you look at Noberto, business owner for the last 30 years in the city of Meriden, loves the city. You look at Joey Carabetta, the great work he's doing, the great work he did on the council, the businesses he's opening, the jobs he's creating here in the city of Meriden with his tree company and his and the dumpsters. And then you have Dan Brunet, who's been a solid leader in the Republican Party for over almost a decade.
Yep.
And then you have Bob Williams, again, has been a proven leader for South Meriden. And then you have Ray Olette, like we said before, 25 years of dedicated service to the citizens of the city
Public
of Meriden.
service, yeah.
And then you had Dan Zabrowski, who, like we said before,
he's one of the most engaged individuals in the city with the city's best
and he
interests
does it
at
for
heart.
free.
For free.
He does it for free. Remember, city councilors get paid. This man does it for free
He
every
cares-
single night.
He cares more deeply about Meriden than just about anybody I've ever.
I know nobody that puts more time into making the city of Meriden a better place than Dan Zabrowski.
Right.
Hands down.
Right.
It just blows my mind. So I look at that slate compared to theirs, and it's like, how is this even going to be a race? This really shouldn't even be a race. There should be an earthquake on November 2nd with Republicans just doing a clean sweep right across the board.
Well, that was the concept of having a slate versus having independent candidates come out and say, I'm strongly for this, I am strongly against this, and what are my positions? If we had two city councilors, two Republican or We the People city councilors added to the town council, you'd still have an overwhelming majority control of the Democrats. And the only way anything is going to change in the city of Meriden is if we have a slate of conservative-minded individuals like we have, the best group, I think, along with you.
Long time.
That just an outstanding group of people that have the city's best interests at heart, and it's going to take all of them to get voted in to make any change whatsoever. Otherwise, they're just going to be cast as naysayers and against progress and whatever this democratic progress and how proud of their progress. I just see the same things being spewed over and over again about how great the green is, about how the downtown is being revitalized.
Which I like to know where they see that.
Well, yeah, there are more empty buildings, just as many empty storefronts down at 24 Colony than I think once it got up and they were open for subletting. Let's get people in, let's get leases signed. There's nobody running down there to put their business in.
No one.
And what business is going to go in there unless they're subsidized?
Correct.
Or if they're a nonprofit, and again, the nonprofits are being subsidized by the tax rolls here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just sustaining an unsustainable, fake business environment.
That's why we talked about a couple of days ago with the article that came out about new businesses opening in the city of Meriden. And I'm looking at the ones they're naming, and I'm like, well, okay, yeah, but all those businesses closed, and then they just opened in another name. Right. So it's like, no, okay, so why don't you tell me the numbers of how many businesses closed in the city of Meriden? Because I don't see our tax rolls going up. I don't see the grand list going up. So you tell me how many closed and then how many opened, and then we could have that discussion. Because I tell you what, they're probably going to be equal, if not more, closed than opened. So
I remember running and getting a report for Meriden and who was the largest employer in the city, the top 10 employers. And the first employer was the city itself, and the second highest employer was Midstate. And then as far as other businesses were concerned, there were a couple that had 100, 125 people, and then it went down into the 20s.
Yeah.
So we just don't have the manufacturing. We don't have. What are we going to do for a city for economic development to bring in many, many good-paying jobs? I know that the city's trying to focus on bringing people in, but we have economic pressures here in Meriden. Number one, that we've created ourselves with the spending that we've talked about ad nauseum here, but we also have state policies that have not helped the economy here, the business economy. As you see, the flight from New York City, as you see people going up to Boston and the intellectual hub, in Cambridge and around Boston. You see the growth there. It used to be Massachusetts. It used to be a joke. We were so proud of how great Connecticut was. And now, we're the laughing stock, not only for everybody that lives north of the border, but around the nation. I have friends from all over the country that say, what is wrong with your state? What is wrong with your senators?
Push GE right out up to Massachusetts.
Yeah. And we have seen some rebounds. I've heard in some discussions that economically we've turned the tide and things are changing.
Everyone's coming from New York down to Stanford. Have you seen the?
And one of the key components to that discussion has been just look at how strong our residential retail property sales are, And that's a relocation and a byproduct of COVID-19 and people wanting to escape out of New York City.
Yeah.
And because we were close, people weren't sure whether or not New York City was going to come back. And if they did, was Wall Street going to be strong? Was it all going to be Zoom meetings and remote teleworking? What are companies going to require for people? Can they come back? Can they just stay at home and work with the families? So, we saw an increase from that, but it wasn't because of economic policies that brought people, that the state was like a magnet, and people said, God, I want to do business in Connecticut because it is such a great location. It is right between major metropolitan areas. All the highways intersect in Meriden. We have so much going for us. And yet, we have a governor who gets executive privilege truly to be a king. And, we fought a war, 246 years ago, whatever the number was, to get rid of a king. And now we're going back to the same thing where the people that we elect really aren't representing us at all. We have one person that's representing us and making policy that can, theoretically can be voted against by a Zoom meeting for the legislators. But we've got our priorities pretty mixed up in the state, and I think that trickles down and is compiled by the inefficiency of our city council to actually police itself. And I don't mean police in the policing sense. I mean policing financially and making smart decisions. And I think that if we have, for example, Elaine Cariotti has tremendous executive experience. And she knows how to read balance sheets, and she knows how to be accountable, and she knows how to make money, and she knows what losing money feels like. And so therefore, in losing money, you learn how not to do things, how to do bad policy decisions. She understands that. And I think the city could really, really use, number one, having the first female mayor would be huge. I think that would be excellent. But I also think that her experience and her executive experience is something that we don't have a mayor that has that.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't had a mayor that has that for a long, long time. And we don't have a strong mayor. And perhaps one day, that may change. But for now, we need to have the tip of the spear, so to speak, to be as astute and keen as we can have. And I don't think we have that with our present administration. So
I agree. And like I said, I think November 2nd is going to be a very interesting day. I look forward to it. But we are going to wrap it up because I think we're over.
Oh, let's talk some more.
Oh, my God. We can sit here, like I said.
Sure.
Speaking with some people, like Dan Zabrowski on Sunday, we could sit here literally and talk for hours on different things going on. And we will get you back on again.
Well, I love this, Joe, and I appreciate the opportunity to sit and talk with
anytime.
Okay.
Thank you for coming and helping out today.
You bet. I didn't expect to be sitting in this
right?
chair.
Well, I wasn't expecting to do a show this early. I was going to do a pre-recorded one and then throw it up later on tonight since, like I said, I'm going off to Boston. But it just happened you were here. You're always a wealth of information, and
happy to be here.
And I love to pick your brain.
Thanks.
So, again, Lou, thank you for being here. And again, we have these candidates are out and about, so make sure you grab them when you see them. But until then, like I said, this will be played back tonight. I apologize that you guys couldn't call in, and we'll get your messages and your emails, and we'll talk about it again on Thursday. But until then, I love each and every one of you. God bless you. God bless this great state of ours, and God bless this most amazing country that we live in. I love you guys. God bless you, and I will talk to you guys on Thursday. Good night.